Hey everybody, this is Carissa Keister from Stillwater Area Public Schools, home of the ponies, and you are listening to Pony Voices. On this show, we celebrate the amazing people of Stillwater schools and give you an insider's view of what is happening across our district. Not only is our mascot unique, so are our stories. So grab a cup of coffee, get comfy, and settle in for our latest episode. Did you hear the story of the autistic student who was befriended by members of the pony football team? Or the one where a paraprofessional started a special cheer squad to give voice to kids who cannot speak? If you've been paying any attention over the past several years, you've likely heard some pretty cool stories about what kids and staff in the Stillwater Area Public Schools have embraced the concept of inclusion. Students of various abilities have come together in unique and fun ways to celebrate all the things that make them special. At the high school, they've got a name for all this goodness. They're calling it the Inclusion Revolution. And it's not just making for positive news stories, it's leading to life-changing experiences. Today we'll be hearing from students, staff, and parents about how inclusion is spreading in our schools and the powerful difference it's making.
Everybody has a desire to belong. Everybody wants to be able to live their life and be happy. And so I think it's amazing that we have opportunities for me, but also just all kids.
It's so cool. And you can kick the ball into the net.
I love to cheer on my friends. I use a special button that has cheers recorded on it.
I watch films. Somebody watch me. My fans love me.
I just like the relationships that I am able to make, and it's just seeing a kid in the hallway saying, "Hey, how's it going? How's your day going?" They're always putting a smile on your face, and hopefully you can do the same and put a smile on theirs.
I'm joined by Paula Harrison, a high school teacher, and Jill Chow, a pony parent. Thank you both for joining me.
Thanks for having us. Of course.
So today we're talking about inclusion. And to kick things off, Paula, why don't you just describe for me, what does inclusion mean? What does it look like in our district?
Well, I just did an assignment with my unified class, and we talked about the difference between inclusion and exclusion. And inclusion is just inviting people to the dance, and then not just inviting them, but also participating with them at the dance. So they are coming together and working together, playing together, and having fun together.
Awesome. Jill, tell me a little bit about what inclusion means for you. You are a parent of several students in our district, but tell me a little bit about Liam and why this is making such a difference in Liam's life.
Inclusion means having access to things that he might not otherwise. He has the opportunity to be in, we have 3 adaptive sports that he has access to. And for him, he gets to have a normal or a typical teenage experience. From even the little things like staying after school and kind of clowning around with his friends before his sport starts. I know that sounds small, but that's such a big thing. And then he gets to participate on a team where he might actually get to be a star. And at the same time, he can also learn teamwork and positivity and how to be a leader. And he also has so many friends within the community. Our adaptive sports, we have a partnership, a co-op with Matamidi. And so those students who might not otherwise have enough students at their school to have a team join us on our team. And then they just have a larger community because of that. So he's made friends in Matamidi and the Stillwater district. But I think for me personally, what I love about this is how he's having such a typical experience. He has practices after school, and then he has games. And what has been exceptional to me is watching some of our typical students always embrace our adaptive athletes. Just one of the guys, one of the gals, and they come into the games and it starts to get really loud. We've had other teams comment about how great it is that all of a sudden it's kind of, the game is starting, and then all of a sudden you look over and the whole volleyball team just finished their practice, and they walk in and it starts to get loud. And then you look over and suddenly there's 90 football players that came in and started cheering our team. And not only that, those typical athletes are using our athletes' names. They're cheering specifically for them. They're saying, "Go get him, Liam," and "Way to go, Jack." And then they're also, because of the programs that I think like Trust Club that we have in the school, they're encouraging the other team. "Good job, number 20," from the other side of the field. And I just think that makes our athletes feel special and included at the same time. They're having the same experiences. And that's what we want for our kids, is just to to reach their highest potential, whatever that might be, but in an inclusive environment. Another thing that I think Stillwater does very well, I'm so grateful that we have these 3 adaptive sports, but I think Stillwater does an exceptional job of including our special athletes in some of the more general sports. My son has had the opportunity to also participate on a high school swim team, and those athletes are inclusive, and it's wonderful. So he gets the opportunity to be in an adaptive sport where he might be a really strong player and get some leadership experience from that, and then also be on his high school team where he may learn more about how can I support, if I'm JV here and I'm varsity on adaptive sports, how can I support all the athletes and learn how to be an important part of that team just by cheering. He swims a lot, but sometimes just by cheering too. So I think our district in particular does a really good job of including access to whatever sport fits them.
I love what you were talking about with the cheering of the other students. And we've heard this numerous times when we've been to the state tournament with adaptive sports, and we have the largest crowd, hundreds and hundreds of people show up to cheer for our athletes. That doesn't happen by accident. That doesn't happen everywhere. Paul, I know you've been doing a lot of work at the high school over the years with a team of people around you too. We have a lot of educators at the high school that are really working to create an inclusive environment. But talk to me a little bit about what has been happening over the past few years. What are things like the Trust Club and some of these other things that Jill has mentioned?
So it began when I went back to the high school after I'd been away for a little bit and back into helping with developmental adapted physical education. And I'd gone to a conference and found out about a new course that they were putting together called Unified Physical Education. And it just fired me up. Like, this has got to happen at Stillwater. This would be great. This is the way it's supposed to be, because typically as a DAPE teacher, you would separate the kids and you would play catch, or you would work on the skills they need to work on, just you as an adult and them as children. And it was good. I mean, you helped the students with their needs, but this brings their peers with them doing exactly the same thing, but with them rather than just an adult or a paraprofessional helping them. The paraprofessionals come to class and help guide and, assist as needed, but my lessons to them is please just watch and see how it unfolds. And if there is something that's needed by you, or there's some extra assistance mobility-wise or otherwise, it's nice to see the organic way they all connect. And if anybody knows me, I would say this has been the biggest life-changing thing in my teaching career. So when we started the class, then we're like, other schools have a club. What kind of a club should we have to do this? And we were trying to come up with a name. And Trust Club came out of just many different brainstorms with some of the earliest students that did it. And Trust stands for True Respect Unifies Students Together. And it just was like, that's it. That's exactly what we need to do. So that's a time when our Trust Club members come in, they play games with them, they'll play on the scooter, they'll just hang out and talk. That's where we practiced for our unified basketball tournament. And then they also can go in the classroom and do puzzles and watch a movie and read a book and do it all together, where, as Jill said, they're just friends. It's not like, oh, I have to go, I'm made or I'm forced to go and help. It's they want to be there. And then to watch that is just the most meaningful thing for any educator, and that's the beauty of what's been happening.
That's what really strikes me too. I have walked down the halls of the high school for many years. I've been here for a long time, and it feels like the last 5 years, maybe a little bit longer than that, I'm actually seeing that in the hallway, where you're seeing, the group of athletic kids who are stopping and talking to kids that maybe would have just walked right past them in the past, and now they are greeting them by name and high fives and the whole thing. It's truly a change in the atmosphere at the high school.
And it's, I think, a lot of that comfort level with just learning how to interact with people who might be a little different from you. I see that every day in the community where, a few years ago, somebody might have addressed me when my son was ordering something at a restaurant. And now I see these students who I know are Stillwater students, they ignore me, which I love, and they directly address Liam, and he has genuine conversations, and it's just so important, those little day-to-day things. And I know it's you're teaching them how to just be inclusive, and it feels so good as a parent to watch that every day.
Well, and on that note, a typical student would be a little fearful of the unknown, or that they're different from them. Their ability to walk or their ability to speak clearly or however, but as they're learning that they just have to be a little patient and ask nicely to repeat, and the students will do that for each other. And they'll even come up with much better ideas than I do. And that's where I learn every single day from all of them, like, oh, that's a really good idea. We should try that. So that is the fun part, is when it becomes natural to all of them. And then it moves it out into the community, and let's go grand at the world.
And that, I'm glad you brought that up, because I have seen this also spreading into the community. You talked about even at restaurants, but some of these relationships with younger students. I believe there was a story I heard recently of like a 4th or 5th grader from an elementary school who was befriended by the high school football team. So some of these lessons they're learning at high school are going beyond the walls of Stillwater Area High School and pouring out into the community.
I've had so many people from Trust Club approach me too and tell me how much they love Liam, which I love to hear. Keep those coming. But also that they've been inspired to go into special education as a career. Some of this access for our typical students has inspired them to find career paths they might not otherwise know as well.
That is so important. We know how hard it is to find special educators to begin with. It is a challenging but very rewarding job, but I don't think it's something people typically think of until they have those experiences.
And getting comfortable with it. I had a conference with a parent last night, and God bless her. It's like she called and said, I just want to say that my daughter comes home every day and says it's the highlight of her day, and she is thinking of going into not necessarily special education, but OT or PT, and that if that's a population of students she feels comfortable working with, that is a gift. And that was refreshing to hear from a parent to give advice to her daughter, that is something that is an option. And like you said, it's tough, and it's a tough field, but as I've also shared, is it's very rewarding, and I wouldn't have given it up for the world. So it's kind of nice that I've been able to have this experience.
Paula, you have been in the district for a while, and talk to me just a little bit about that evolution from maybe where you saw our district when you first started to where we are now, and what that means to you.
It's much more inclusive, and administratively, it's been growing. I think we're trying to bring the middle schools into play to do some unified physical education. The elementary, some of those teachers are also trying to introduce that, and that is where the inclusion revolution comes in, is it just keeps spiraling into good and going into the positive, and I think the district is embracing it, which is really heartwarming to me to watch. And leaving as retiring is, I don't want it to go away, so you're probably going to hear from me even after I officially retire, because I just want to keep it strong, and I think it will, as long as we are open to ideas and supported.
Well, good. I'm glad we're not getting rid of you, Paula, because you are central to so much of this, and your passion is just contagious. And clearly, you have started a lot of these things, and now they have momentum, and they're spilling out to the rest of the schools, too, which is exciting to hear. Jill, talk a little bit just about your experience of raising a child with special needs here in Stillwater, what that has looked like over the years. And you've talked a little bit about the high school, but how do you feel as a parent here in Stillwater?
When you first learn that your child has special needs, there's a grieving process, and I always remind new parents, it's okay, you should cry, and then later you'll wonder why you ever cried at all. And it has been incredibly rewarding, not just for me, but I think for my daughters too. I think they've learned so much about life, about what success looks like, and how we measure that, and what's fair to say is a very successful person. And Liam just brings so much joy. He's loud and gregarious and fun, and so I'm a very lucky person. But I remember the district, from the time that Liam was 3 weeks old, they contacted me and offered support in home services and stuff to come into OT, and just kind of, I think at that point it was more for me than for Liam, to be honest, but they did wonderful things. They paired me with another family who had gone through the same experience. What an incredible mentor program that was. And going from there, then they would just include us in so many things. One of his former teachers was a captain's parent for football that year, so he was young, 6 or 7, and she suggested, would he like to flip the coin at the football game? I can't tell you, any kid would feel like a rock star. And then he walks out on that field with those huge football players. He came up to their knee, I think, and it was just the coolest experience for us. And he loved it. Fast forward 6 months, we walked into the candy store downtown, and this big burly blonde kid who I'd never set eyes on before said, "Oh, Liam, how are you?" And I looked at him and I said, are you a football player? And he said, "I am. I remember when he came and flipped the coin." And it was really dusty in there. I got really teary-eyed for some reason. But that stuck with me, where that's the minute we became a pony. You know, they look out for each other. They remember each other. And that was so sincere. There was nothing contrived about that. He just remembered him and included him and made him feel like $1,000,000 again. And I feel like we've had such wonderful experiences. That his peers have always just been so kind, and it takes us forever to get through Target because they're all stopping him and high-fiving him and joking with him, and they include him in so many different things, and it's just been wonderful. He has great friendships and wonderful teachers that every time he sees his teachers, I love you, and that's very sincere because they clearly love him back. I've just been overwhelmed by the staff and teachers and everyone we have here. And I also, just to prove that love, we were talking about how things snowball. We have these 3 adaptive sports that do incredibly well at in competition, but we have these staff members who saw a need for some young people who didn't or couldn't participate in soccer or in hockey or in softball, which are 3 sports. And they thought, you know what? A cheer club. And then all of a sudden we've got an adapted cheer squad that comes to our games. And it was incredible to watch them, and they got the crowd going. And that was all because some staff saw a need and loves these kids. You can't buy that. You can't train that. It just is organic, and it's just been the community that we've been a part of, for sure.
The whole time you're talking, I have goosebumps going up and down my arms. I mean, this is what makes you really, really, truly proud to be part of this community, is the love that we have for all of our kids and the extra efforts that our staff are willing to go to make sure that all of our kids have opportunities to just experience what it means to be a kid, right? To be able to play the sports and cheer on the sidelines and be part of a community of kids. So, yes, like I said, goosebumps. I hope our audience can feel that too.
There's so much to be said about unified physical education. Is not just about the athletic piece of it or the skills that you're working on. You're working on their ability to work together, and if they have problems or struggles or get really competitive and get mad at each other, how do we handle that and how do we talk about that? And watching our typical students watch me correct and pull them to the side and talk to them, they feel more comfortable talking to them about, no, we don't want to do that, or let's make sure we're being kind to each other. You know, they'll report things to me and say, well, this happened, what do you think? And then that's that teachable moment where you say, thank you for sharing because we need to address that. But in the future, you have the ability to talk them through it as well in a positive way. So that starts that piece of learning that they probably didn't know that they needed or could do. You know, it's not about being the know-it-all or bossy. And I will give them that example I said earlier about being the example and doing the right thing, so they see you doing the right thing. So you'll watch a kid that might be super competitive, that is a typical student, go, oh, I better not do that. I better not be sassy. And then so everybody's learning. It's not like we're just here helping our special needs friends, we are here, they're learning, and for them to grow in so many different ways is part of the beauty.
You know, one thing that we've been talking about this whole time that I've never really put a name to before is how much dignity and respect this program fosters. Just the fact that the students are coming to you and asking for advice before they approach something, or they're dealing with something really discreetly, and they're learning how to address their peer as a peer with dignity and respect. And of course that bleeds over into real life for both the typical and atypical friends. But there's so much respect. These typical peers, even when they have to address behavior or something like that with my son, they're so respectful and kind about it. And that's modeled from staff for sure, and then from each other. And then, like you were saying, my son learns it and then encompasses it and uses it with his own peers. So I feel like there's a very, very clear sense of respect, consideration, and kindness that flows throughout this program.
I was thinking something along the same lines as Paula was talking, like, wouldn't it be great if everybody went through this class? Like, I'm talking adults in our community, the littlest kids in our community. I mean, these are the sorts of experiences we all need. Because I know as adults, we get in those situations too where we don't know how to address somebody if they have a child with special needs, or if you meet an adult with special needs in our community. We're not even always sure how we're supposed to talk to them or what our role should be. So I'm just wishing I could go back to high school right now and take this class with you, Paula.
Come and hang out.
It's pretty fun.
It is very fun. Well, it feels like we could talk all day, but we do need to close up. So I just want to thank you both for being a part of this today. I want to thank all of our staff and families who have entrusted us with their children and the difference that we can make for them. And again, I'm just very, very proud of our district as we have this conversation today, and I hope our listeners are proud as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for the opportunity to share this. We really appreciate it.
If you enjoyed this episode of Pony Voices, please share it with your friends and neighbors. And be sure to subscribe to our podcast to make sure you never miss an episode. Until next time, go ponies!